Welcome everybody to Zentor's devlog. I am the economy dev lead for Discovery and a local coding meddler. It's been a spell since I put out a video, so we're going to try and get a couple of things out there. They're not going to be as cohesive as the previous topics because they're a couple of small changes to a few different things, mostly centered around bases. Sorry. I know that's kind of my thing, but I promise I code for other stuff too. So I don't think that there's going to be any direct footage of some of these because they're actually code written on several different commits, so they're kind of scattered. I will include a link to one of them where I took a small snippet of its change, but let's just get into it. So the first thing, in preparation for a very large siege overhaul for bases,
Warning, sensor
which is done, by the
efficiency
way. I
low.
just we'll talk about that on a separate video. In preparation for that, I did a lot of minor changes to how bases
Dock.
take
Dock in
damage and
use.
how they heal.
Entering queue.
So let's get right into it. They're going to be less linear and static than what they are now. Bases that are uncrewed, so basically the food and water has been depleted and so the crew have died off or have started to die off. If they're not at adequate crew levels per their core, they're going to experience accelerated degradation as they fall below certain thresholds. So, for instance, a full base
Dock.
that has been uncrewed, it's at 100% health, will start to degrade at a fairly normal rate. But once it drops below 80% of its health potential, the degradation will speed up. And when it drops below 60%, it'll speed up again, and then below 40, and then below 20. So the point is, once you get below 20% of your base's total health and it still hasn't been crewed, then it's going to die really fast. This is also based off of the core levels. So essentially, even a core 4 base that is um, fully crewed, or sorry, a core 4 base that is uncrewed
Dock.
and doesn't get any kind of replenishment will die in about 45 days. Instead of currently, it takes over a year for a base to die. The hope for this is so that all the junk bases that are out there that have long been unused will go away and they're less strain on the server, and we can just keep the bases that people are actually playing. And also, not only is it less of an eyesore, but for all those POB haters out there, there'll be less reason for you to hate them. We want to focus on what we can do with these bases rather than just junk floating in space for years on end. So that's going to be one significant change.
Dock.
In congruence with this, regeneration of bases is going to be faster scaled based off of the core of the base. This is to represent that higher core bases, core 2, 3, and 4, have significantly higher maintenance resources available to them and greater infrastructure already in place. So core 4 bases, they're going to heal at a significantly faster rate than a core 1 base, because a core 1 base, it's supposed to kind of represent a kind of a ramshackle depot that was just put together. It's barely pressurized at this point. It's just dropped into
Dock.
space. Whereas a core 4 base, this is a well put together organization or business or faction at this point. They have the money, they have the resources, they have all of the logistics in place, they have their supply line set up. This is like going from a mom and shop little store that you find on the side of the road to, like a big corporate enterprise. So that's going to be different. Um, Another change that will happen along with those two changes above is
Dock.
the health of bases. The max total HP of bases is going to change. Instead of the current, I believe, 400, 600, 800, 1.2 billion, and 1.6 billion for the bases, the numbers are going to shift a little bit on the lower end. Core 1 bases are only going to be 200 million. Core 2 bases are going to be 400 million. Core 3 bases are going to be 700 million. Core 4 bases are going to be 1.1 billion, and Core 5 bases will remain at 1.6 billion. And if you'll notice, there's a nice little symmetry there of each time you go up a core, when you go from Core 1 to Core 2, you go up 200 million. When you go from Core 2 to Core 3, you're going to go up 300 million, and so on, 400 and 500. The reasoning behind this is once again that Core 1 bases are vulnerable. Not too vulnerable now. Okay, we put some measures in place in the big siege rework that we've been working on to ensure that they have potential. But Core 1 bases are going to be vulnerable, and it's going to be visible. It's going to be known in the numbers essentially. Um, and I think with the other changes that are coming, this is going to make a lot more sense. So don't scream yet. It'll be all right. So shifting from base health, let's talk about base deployment. This has been vastly streamlined. So currently, if you want to build a base, you have to go get a construction ship, and then you have to go on a little scavenger hunt across Sirius to get all the random components that you need to drop down a base. With the new system, what we're going to do is you still have to use a construction ship, but the commodities you have to have on board are going to be much simplified. You have to purchase one core base component, which is going to be a high volume thing. It's going to represent, like the main structure of the base that's being towed in place and dropped out there, um, which will be a fairly significant purchase amount in order to represent that, you're putting a habitat into space. And in addition with that, you're going to have on board crew, food, water, and oxygen. The minimums for them to stay alive, I think, is 200 of each. And we're adjusting the numbers so that it fits on board the construction ship. And the idea is when you go to deploy the base and you issue the command, those four commodities get automatically deposited into your commodity storage. So it's very newbie friendly. If you've never encountered base building before, new players come into the server will know exactly, I mean, they'll know pretty much what to do. You have to have a core base component and the stuff that needs to be on the base, crew and food, or crew and supplies rather. So that's a nice little quality of life change, and it's meant to make it simplified for people that are new to the server, because base building is, an exciting feature for people that have played Freelancer before but have not just experienced Discovery. So we want to make sure that it's readily accessible for folks that come to the server. Another minor change to the ore refineries that was in one of the last videos is I had talked about towards the end of the video that I wanted to make a continuous feature, so that whenever you start refining a particular ore, say niobium, you can also put in a command that would make it continuously run niobium refining so long as there's more supplies on the base. So in this kind of sense, you have your miner or miner crew out there that's collecting all the niobium, and maybe you have a hauler that's bringing it to the base. It will continuously search for niobium until you tell it to stop. And so if there's enough niobium to start the process again, it'll keep going. And all we're doing to make that happen is in the commands where you actually tell it to start building or start refining, you just add a true to the end of the line. And I'll post it up on the screen here, the full command, so that you know exactly what that is. And if it's not there, then it's just going to run through one cycle, which I think currently in my tests, my beta test for refining, I think I put in 5,000 of the raw ore becomes 4,000 of the refined ore. So it'll just produce a single batch of 4,000 refined niobium. And we're going to adjust all of the routes in order to make sense of these changes. And I'll have more updates on that in the future. Short future, hopefully. So I think that that's going to conclude the stuff that I've already done because I don't really want to get into Siege reworks in this particular video. I want to dedicate an entire video to it because it's pretty extensive. I do want to touch on somebody recently gave me a pretty interesting idea with bases to have like a back room access so that I mean, this has long been talked about in Discovery and on the forums is how people RP that the base, like there's a special back room where you have access to the good stuff, maybe the illicit goods, the contraband, the the highly desired weaponry or whatever. So I think that that's something I'm going to take a look at here soon. I know for sure that I could make it possible through a menu, just how the shop menu works. Right now, if you have access to the shop, then those items that are not normally visible to the public will become visible in the commodity dealer, or at least it will if you're the admin logged into the base. So I know for sure that I can make it so that if you have access to this, smuggler or contraband or backroom password, it could for sure open up a menu that shows all of those items, but I believe I can also make it so that those now appear in the commodity dealer after you've put in the password. So that's something I'm going to poke around on. I'd also really like to integrate this with the bar in bases so that you could, purchase rumors um, from the bar of a particular base that could be set in place by the base owner and even get access to that back room from purchasing it directly from the barkeep or something like that. That's something that's going to take some work, but it's something I'm looking into, and I think I'm going to start including some of these ideas or things that I'm poking at in these videos as I do them. But anyway, I think that that's going to wrap it up for what I've got today. Sorry it's short, but there's some fun stuff. I want to let you guys know that I'm still working on stuff. I'm still working with the other devs. Um, this patch, when it comes, it's going to be pretty massive because not only the stuff that I've talked about, but there's a lot of other stuff going on. So sit tight, enjoy yourselves, have a happy Turkey Day if that's something you do next week, and I'll see you guys on the next one.